Habits are something I don't think we think about nearly enough. They are the air we breathe, and they're there every moment of every day. And given that they're just so self evident, we don't think about them. We don't think that it is a habit that gets us out of bed in the morning. We don't think that it's a habit that we use to brush our teeth. We don't think that it's a habit we use to speak the words that are coming out of our mouth. We just kind of think of it as something that happens. And it's not to say that we never think about it as a habit. I'm sure that thought crosses some of your minds, as it does mine. However, more often than not, I do not find myself thinking about habits as often as maybe I should. And why am I ranting on about habits? Why is this important? Why should I care? The thing about habits is they're so prevalent in our day-to-day activity that in order to change our day-to-day activity, to change ourselves as individual people, we have to change habits. And that isn't something we focus on a lot. We oftentimes focus on changing the behavior, not changing habits. And so if we want to do a new habit, we try to create a habit as opposed to working within the framework of habits that we already have. So instead of trying to wake up early, we could start to pay better attention to the habit of trying to sleep in and being able to notice that habit. And this sounds really, really, really complicated, and I'm going to transfer over to some meditation concepts to at least give you guys some food for thought and give myself some food for thought in the direction of where I think contemplating this thought process is useful. So in meditation, mindfulness meditation in particular, you're focusing on the present moment. You're focused oftentimes on the sensations of the breath. Sometimes it's the sounds in the environment, the feeling in your body, all the minuscule things that could bring your attention to this present moment that are unique about this present moment. However, when practicing mindfulness-based meditation, it can become incredibly easy to think that the goal is to hold that present moment awareness, when the goal of seated practice is actually to begin to recognize what it feels like to be distracted, so that you have an opportunity to come back to the present moment, to come back to the breath, the environment, because it's inevitable. It's something we start to understand through the process of meditation. It is inevitable that we are going to become distracted, that we are going to lose our focus. And once we lose our focus, we start acting in habit again. We're distracted. We're not here. And oftentimes, the beginning process of learning mindfulness-based meditation is met with frustration. You experience that distraction and you get mad at yourself, not only because you are distracted and you're no longer focused, which is the thing you're trying to do, but the harder you try and focus, oftentimes the longer this period of distracted or deeper this distraction will go, which for one reason or another, that level of deepness in the distraction, how distracted you are, and for how long you've been distracted, tend to fuel how mad you are at yourself for failing to stay focused. And it also makes it more difficult to shift back to focus, because as you start to shift back to focus, you're having all of these negative thoughts about how you're mad about how you're not keeping focused, or if you were ruminating, you might find yourself right back in the rumination, thinking about whatever is emotionally triggering you at this point in time. And as you mindfully meditate more and more and more, you start to have this experience where you can just sit with these moments, where they aren't inconveniences anymore. Suddenly, these long, deep, distracted thought processes are okay. And when you notice them, that's kind of the time to break free of them. And sometimes you're a little bit deeper in the thought process than you'd like to be. And either way, you just gently bring yourself back to the present moment and allow the mind to go back to whatever that thought process is, to continue to try and unravel whatever mysteries or anger or emotion that it's trying to unravel. And as you notice that this is taking place, you start to become familiar with the sensations of it. As you pay attention, you start to notice how any particular trauma, whether it be a work-related incident that you just had, where your boss said something mean to you and you've been thinking about it all day, you'll start to notice how it feels when you're thinking about that, and that'll start to be your trigger to come back to the present moment. And so, over the course of months, you get better and better and better at this process. And in the same way, I think with habits, we need to start approaching changing some of these big habits we have in the same way, and being a little bit more forgiving with ourselves, and being able to sit with ourselves as we are engaging in the habits that we wish we would change, whether it be smoking too much weed, drinking too much, playing too many video games, and become familiar with what it feels like not only to do those activities, but what it feels like to want to do those activities, and work on gently shifting to other activities as you notice you want to do these activities. Because I think long term, that's what changing these core habits that are destructive in our lives looks like, is being able to sit with our destructive habits, destructive patterns, and work through them instead of beating ourselves up every time that we engage in them. Because the more we beat ourselves up in those moments, the less we want to look at them, the less we become familiar with how it feels in those moments, and the less equipped we're going to be to shift our behavior to more beneficial habits.